Okay, time for a little Spokeshave repair. Here's a Spokeshave with a brass insert in front on the sole. Here's a Spokeshave that is worn out. This is very typical for what happens. The wood wears out in front, so you can see that big gap, and now the wood's worn out all the way just about to the blade, so it's actually getting difficult to use. It takes a very big chunk of wood when I'm working it in the center and not much on the edges. So I want to put an insert in there. You could do a brass insert, but the problem with that is you got to put some screws in. Not that big of a deal. This is actually another way I'm going to show you by just putting a piece of wood in there and gluing it in there. And this is some hardwood. You could try to get boxwood. This happens to be lignum vitae. This one was a different insert that I put in. Actually, wasn't really an insert per se, but it was laid on top and filed down. That's an easy way to do it, but aesthetically, it's not as pleasing. You see these kind of feathered out edges, but it works great. It's fine. So I'm basically going to do a variation on this, but instead of laying the piece of wood on top after filing it down and getting it flat, I'm going to just mortise it into, just do some saw cuts here and mortise it in. See how that goes. Cutting about a couple degrees tilted so I can dovetail that in slightly. You could certainly do brass. You just don't always have a piece of brass around. Maybe you need your Spokeshave right away. This should be easier than doing brass. Obviously not as long term. If you build golf clubs and you put a horn in here as a sole protector, it's kind of a similar process. So a lot of what I do when I build these golf clubs, I've learned quite a bit, and it just gives you confidence to work with the hand tools a little bit more. So at this point, let's try the rasp here, more like a float really, the Iwasaka rasp. It's got a safe edge on it, so that way when I'm working this section here, I don't have to worry about widening it. When I try to maintain that same angle that it was at before as much as possible. If it's off by a degree or two, it's not the end of the world. I think on that one of those repairs that I did change the angle a little bit. Doesn't seem to affect it in any way. So we're getting close. I'm going to have to cut out a piece to match it and know when I'm fitting it properly. So we'll cut that to match. First thing we'll do is just joint this one edge. I think that's fine. Yeah, there's no gap that I can see. shooting board here to square out these edges. Check for square. And it looks square. Bottom line is I'm going to have to do a saw cut anyway to split this off. We'll make it a little wide in terms of from front to back. From side to side we need it exact. Oops. Oh well. That didn't split it how I wanted it. And we'll use the other half. I'll have to plane that down. The cut I made for the mortise was just a little off of 90 degrees, so I'm compensating here. In retrospect, I could have just cut the replacement piece out and then traced lines to mark the location of the cuts, but I somehow was still off with my cut about a degree or two. So I'm using this miter cutter, and it allowed me to cut off of 90 degrees. So just checking to make sure it fits. It's very awkward clamping this spokeshave to work on this particular aspect. It's just cutting a little thin right here. There are a couple spots where it's not cutting. So I'll just mark those. I failed to mention in the beginning that the blade is convex, just a little bit. So you definitely have to take that into account. You can't just sharpen the blade flat, and you cannot have a flat sole in front. So you have to camber it a little bit. And I was doing that. And that's the reason I kept the blade in there while I was shaping it, because it's pretty hard, even with a pencil mark. It's pretty hard to get close. So just trying to get some high spots. There are a couple little high spots left. Still a bit light here on the cuts, so we'll take that out, the blade out again, and work it down just a little bit more